there have been times where they slip back into Cold War thinking and a Cold War mentality. And what I consistently say to them and what I say to President Putin is that's the past.
U.S. President Barack Obama, Russian President Vladimir Putin, never exactly kindred spirits, but it's NSA leaker Edward Snowden who's been creating trouble. Well, it wasn't paradise, but it was working fine until recently. Russia granted Snowden asylum. Obama is not taking that lying down. He canceled a planned summit in Moscow with Putin over the matter, although he'll still be attending the G20 meeting in Russia. Question: what could the implications be for the overall picture of U.S.-Russian relations? We're joined via Skype by Jed Babin, former Deputy Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of Defense. Jed, before we do anything else, I mean, optics do matter. Does Putin, do any of his people take seriously Obama discussing serious issues on Jay Leno's couch?
Well, it would be hard for anybody to take that seriously. I mean, when you have the international debate on national security issues, you really don't have them with a comedian. Well, I guess you do if you're Barack Obama. It's hard to take his foreign policy seriously anyway, so we might as well laugh at it, Charles.
What do you think the president is actually trying to accomplish here?
Well, I think he's trying to basically save face by refusing to meet with Putin after Putin grants Snowden asylum, even temporarily. For Obama to meet with him right after that, it would be a tremendous, acceptance of the spit in the eye that he just got from Putin. So I think it's understandable. It's really not a big deal, and it's not going to improve things in any respect. I mean, look, one of the things we have to understand is Obama has been giving Putin presents, I mean, gifts of all sorts, ever since he became president of the United States. The fact is, right now, we're sitting in a position where he's negotiated a very bad follow-on arms reduction agreement with the Russians. He's given that to Putin, and he wants to do another one. He's already said that he wants to give them enough data about our missile defense system that they would be able to defeat it. You know, basically what he's saying is we want to give them enough so that it would not give us an advantage to have the system. Well, what's the point in having the system if you're not going to be able to protect America from even a Russian launch? So the fact that he's not going to meet with Putin, I think, is a wonderful thing, and not for any of the reasons that Obama is citing.
Okay, based on your experience at the Defense Department, based on your experience in Washington for many years, an old Washington hand, as it were, are you surprised that Russia is not sending Snowden to America?
Oh, not at all. I mean, why would they? I mean, Vladimir Putin is an autocrat. He yearns for the days. I think he said something to the effect of that the fall of the Soviet Union was the worst thing that's ever happened to mankind. I mean, he was trained by the CIA. I believe he was a CIA colonel. You know, for Obama to say, well, they're going back to Cold War thinking. I mean, when did they ever leave it? When they left it for a brief time before Putin came to power, it still simply has not been any time since that they have not fought in the Cold War fashion. Obama has to understand that, and he obviously doesn't.
Let me drill down a little bit on the Snowden business. I think you're fairly on top of that file as well. Is Snowden, in your mind, Jed Babin, giving the Russians important intel?
Yes, and he's giving them very important intel, you know, that's being leaked out. I mean, the latest leaks, that I saw published in The Guardian, effectively showed how the NSA uses data and mines data in order to determine certain things. It was a map of the methods and sources of a lot of intelligence gathering, and those are devastating to our intelligence community. So the Russians have them. The Russians may have other things as well. I mean, Lord only knows what the Snowden gave the Russians that he didn't already give to Glenn Greenwald. I mean, the thing is, the Russians can be counted on to suck every bit of data, every bit of information out of Snowden's brain and out of whatever computers he has and hard drives he has with him. You know, they are very good at that. They are very insistent about it. And there's no reason why we should believe that they didn't get every drop of information that Snowden has. So
should we be assuming?
Used against us.
Jed, should we be assuming, to be on the safe side, should we assume right now that whatever the NSA is picking up at this very moment, that the Russians are hacking into that and also picking it up?
Probably. I don't know that they have the capabilities that the NSA has. I mean, it's not obvious to me that they can hack directly into NSA. They would have to have some capability of gathering that same intel themselves. They may now know, they do now know, an awful lot more about how we do things like that. But to say that they are going to get the same kinds of information in the same volume, I don't think that's necessarily true. We don't know, frankly.
By the way, how far does the snubbing go? Can you see the Americans doing with the Russian games what Jimmy Carter did with the Russian games after the Russians went into Afghanistan and the Americans boycotted the Olympics in Russia?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that Obama, to his own standards, has reason to do so. I mean, there's some notice out there, some reports that the Russians might try to imprison homosexual athletes. I mean, who knows? I mean, Obama could do that for any number of reasons, but it would not be of any big deal. I mean, the Russian games are nothing like the Olympics, and quite frankly, all Jimmy Carter did was, basically punish some American athletes rather than make any point against the Russians.
As far as the agenda is concerned, where the Russians and the Americans are supposed to be on the same side, that is fighting international Islamist terror, has that sheet been frayed? Is there a problem right now between Russia and the United States on that all-important front?
Well, I don't think that there has ever been a whole lot of cooperation. There may have been some intelligence exchanges. I think the Russians are completely focused in that respect on Chechnya. After all, the Russians are a very close ally with Iran. They are taking Iran's side in Syria in supporting the Assad government. This is not a government. The Putin government is not one that's ever been very much opposed to terrorism unless it's threatening Russia completely and closely at home. So I don't think that there's ever been very much to American and Russian cooperation in fighting terrorism.
All right, take me down the road to worst possible scenario then, based on how the relationship right now is clearly on ice. What's the downside for the West?
I don't think there is much. I think Russia is still play acting. They want to be a superpower again. They don't have the ability to do that. And, frankly, they are given the gift of a superpower sort of existence by Obama continuing to try to deal with Putin as an equal. I think that right now there is no downside to the fraying relationship, as you put it. I don't think the relationship has much in it for the United States. I think Russia wants to make a lot of trouble wherever it can, and will continue to do so. We are very fortunate in that, again, Russia is not a superpower right now and doesn't have the ability to project power in an awful lot of places.
Jed Babin, really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Jed Babin, former Undersecretary of Defense for the United States of America. He spoke to us from the suburbs of Washington, Leesburg, Virginia. Beautiful part of the world. We've got the word.